Hi everyone, video number 2 for this week. Want to recap from week 4 and then we're gonna intro to week 5. So week 4 had a lot of different difficult things and challenges that you guys faced this week. You did the IAT test that I asked you to do as the activity. You had 4 case examples that were difficult, that brought up a lot of emotion and a lot of feelings and a lot of questions and thoughts and a lot of learning about how different things happen and what the laws are for different things with these circumstances. So thank you for your participation and for getting through the week. I know it was a lot. I know it's a lot to process. I know a lot of you have written that you're still processing and really reflecting on what you learned this past week. So I want to first say thank you to Megan for not only providing the case examples, but also doing the videos to let you guys understand like what occurred, what her role was, what the role of the child life specialist was, and give you those recaps. So I really appreciate that input and her help and the 4 again really great examples that were perfect for this week and the discussions that took place. The discussions were very in depth. You guys all participated, working off each other, building off of things. So thank you for that with these topics. What I wanted to do, I read all the reflections last night and was really thinking about, responding, to the individual ones like I normally do, but I wanted to actually do it on the video because a lot of what came up were similar themes. So some of you felt really strong on your initial reactions for the case examples and your own thoughts of what should happen or really beliefs on certain treatments and age limits and what to do. And that was really hard for a lot of you to have talked about putting those aside to really focus on the family and their needs and their perspectives. So that was great that you were able to recognize that, to reflect on it. The other thing that came up a lot was with the IAT test. So I had you guys do the implicit association test this week on race. Some of you, wrote about it that you had done it before, had the kind of same test results. Some you had the test results that you thought you had. Others were surprised by their test results. So I wanted to take a little time just to discuss that, and what it is. So it's a well-validated measure, and it measures implicit attitudes. And what I want you to remember is that, as we've all talked about, that we all, kind of have these values and biases and things within us that we bring to our job. This is another way to measure certain things that we may not even be aware of that, we're feeling or that we think or that we react to. And a lot of that, when you really research and read into these studies, is, when you look at our media, when you look at the way things are portrayed in the news, our media, our culture of our country, the history of our country. And a lot of times there are certain attitudes that are kind of ingrained because of that. And that's where these kind of tests study and show. And I think, taking it again and seeing, did you get the same result? Did you get something different? Is also helpful for those of you that may want to do it more again or do different ones. What's important to remember is that a lot of times, even if, we have some sort of, implicit attitude on something, if we're compensating in other ways, like, so for instance, really focusing on being culturally competent, doing education at work, treating every family the same, those are ways that kind of make up for the things that may have been ingrained in us, throughout our lives. And, working towards kind of shifting that. And again, with cultural competency, constantly working on being culturally competent and living that and doing it and advocating for it. And so that all kind of ties into, whatever your test on this may be, that it doesn't mean that when you're at your job that you're not, treating everyone equally or reacting the same to everyone. So just keep that in mind. Know that this is all a process. Know that it is also a test. So there, are some ways to, if you read into the, all their questions on there, you can kind of see how they validate it, how it's done, is there an error, a little high, a little low. So look into that if you want to. But I appreciate you guys participating in that. The first time I ever did this was last year, and so it was something that I wanted to include in this class this year. So that is that. With the case studies and all your discussions, I wanted to touch on something that I learned, I've read about, and I was actually at a conference last year that discussed this. And it's something from Brene Brown in her book, Rising Strong. And I think that, everyone has gut reactions, just like we all kind of have our own, value system and own beliefs and own things that we think like, oh, I would do it this way. We all initially have those reactions, and then it's all about shifting perspective and making sure that your focus shifts to what the family needs, what the patient needs, what their perspective is. And so she has this thing that kind of lists like how you start building up. She talks about it a lot with writing a book, but that your initial reaction is your own reaction and your emotions, and being able to recognize what those are and being able to own them. So really being able to recognize, okay, I'm feeling this way, and that's my own emotion, and I'm going to own that, and then I'm going to step to the next step. And so that's kind of the reckoning process. Then there's the rumble process, which is creating your own story. So really getting honest with yourself, acknowledging your feelings, integrating your emotions. She calls this kind of, excuse my language, but she calls this her shitty first draft. So those initial reactions, you have them, you recognize them, then you own them, you own your story, you're honest with yourself. So you're able to then process it. And then, so that kind of revolution process with process becomes practice. And that, every day if we work hard on this, we reintegrate parts that help you grow as a professional, as a person. And therefore you can end up writing your story, finishing your story the whole way. And you can shift that perspective. And the important part with this is that being able to shift your perspective from, okay, this is my initial reaction on this, but now I need to think, okay, what may the mom be thinking? What may the patient be thinking? What is their perspective? What is their background? What is their experience? And being able to step outside of yourself to work with a family. If this doesn't make sense, I'm going to post about it with some of her articles. But a good example of this, I will give you one right now. So I have a new family that I am about to meet that I'm going to be working with. And they have a 13-year-old daughter that's gone through a lot throughout her life. So she was born with sickle cell and was treated for sickle cell for many years. Eventually had issues with her liver and went into liver failure. Had a liver transplant, which she currently has now, but it has been rejecting, and now she has lymphoma. So she's had a really, really hard process throughout everything she's been through. So upon initially speaking with the parents, we talked about, so what does she think about her leukemia? Do her brother and sister know she has this? And the family initial reaction to us was, well, she doesn't know that she has leukemia. So for me, initial reaction, excuse my language, but my shitty first draft, my initial reaction is, how could you not tell your 13-year-old that she has cancer? That's me, my reaction, that initial, gut check. And then I step back and, process how I'm feeling, and I'm able to then shift. I need to know the mom's perspective. I need to know the dad's perspective. I need to know, where their process is in this. And it's not that they don't want to tell her. It's not that they don't want to be honest with her about what's happening. But for this situation, she is extremely sick. She can't get chemotherapy because of it, because her liver is in such failure and she's not eligible for another transplant. So they were very honest. We know she's going to die. We know at some point she's going to die, and we don't feel telling her that she has leukemia on top of or lymphoma on top of everything else now, that it's going to help with her process through this. Okay, so there it is. There's a story. That's their story. This is their decision. And how do I, as a child life specialist, come in and support them, support the patient, support the siblings, and work with them from, what their needs are and their process. So that's kind of an example of, that initial reaction. And I know so many times all of us feel, oh, I can't believe I reacted that way, or I think this way, or, this situation is really, goes up against some of my core beliefs that I've been taught or that, I believe in. And, it's all about being able to shift that perspective in order to do our jobs, in order to support the patients, support the families to the best of our ability for what they need. And I think one of the biggest reminders as child life specialists always is that, this isn't our life, this isn't our decision, these are not, this isn't our personal family, our personal life, and being able to separate that enough to know that you can still support a family that may make a decision that you might not agree with on a different level, but being able to put that aside to do everything you can to meet them where they are and to support them through it. So I hope this video makes sense. Kind of rambled on a little bit, but that is, an example of this. I'm going to post a little bit more about this. But these, case studies, they're challenging. They're meant to be challenging. They are meant to have you guys, trigger things and really dig deep for deciding, and talking about what you would do, why you would do it, pulling out resources, pulling out examples, using the readings. And it really showed this week that happened. For week 5, so you've already seen by now, there are 4 new case studies. Again, thank you, Megan, for giving me such extraordinary things to use. So once again, you're going to have your groups for discussions, 4 case studies. Megan, again, will do videos at the end of the week about these cases. For this week, you are going to be considering, moral and ethical considerations that come into conflict with these children's complex healthcare needs. So like I just said about shifting perspectives, so looking at the needs and perspectives of the child, of the family, of the healthcare professionals, what may exacerbate conflict, what may minimize it. So that's the discussion that's going to be starting this week. We'll be following along closely, and any questions you have, please reach out. And I'll see you guys on the community. +1 this after watching, please. Thanks.